burning question, Mahela, and you are in a unique position to answer this particular question. Do we have any possibility of seeing you as a coach of Sri Lanka cricket?
I told myself, I told everyone that it just, I mean, I want to help in whatever way, but after playing the game for 17 years and being involved, being a national coach is you're going back to that same environment. We are traveling 9 months of the year, you're fully on, and I don't think I have the patience or the ability to do that at this point of my life, because I needed that break. That is one of the reasons that I only do 1 or 2 franchises a year, just for me to get that cricket adrenaline going, and then I have like good 6 to 7 months off cricket, and then focus on my other stuff, which is interesting. So yeah, I mean, that is one of the reasons that I don't want to take a national job anywhere in the world. Not that Sri Lanka, I mean, they have a few interests in other countries as well, but I just declined because I just don't want to be in that situation where I'm living out of a suitcase.
What are the other countries who kind of pursued you?
No, that's
confidential.
It's confidential. It's not.
Talking about following the conclusion of the 2011 World Cup, we had Chandimal and Thirimana coming up the ranks, and you insisted that you wanted to open the batting during the latter part of your career, but it fell on deaf ears, I guess. From a cricketing fraternity's perspective, is that we could have given chances to Chandimal and Thirimana bat at the top of the order, and then maybe you and Kumar Sangakkara protect them so they could be ready.
Yeah, I mean, I heard that quite a bit, but at the same time, when you want to win matches, you want to win World Cups, your best players has to take control and do that. I mean, when I started as well, I batted 6 and just batted until I got my opportunity. I know there was some thought saying that they moved, but I think they moved because their skill set didn't allow them to bat at the top order. So their skill sets were better to bat down the order. So then we were pushed up because our skill sets were better equipped to handle pace. So therefore those changes were made at that time of my career. But later on, Sangha and I was controlling the games, we were winning matches, so we didn't see why did not, but like there were some dead matches, and then we always accommodated guys to bat at the top. But coming back to your point of me wanting to open, that could have helped things much better for our other middle order guys to come to the top, because we had a vacancy at the top at that time. And if you take my record, I think my best runs were scored at top of the order. My average is like something like 65 on those matches. So but everyone felt that the experience was needed in that middle order if something goes wrong to hold things together. But my thought process was different. I said, if I can take control at the top of the order and just bat through and finish matches off, it's the same thing. Percentages were better, my numbers were better at top of the order, and then that would have allowed the younger guys to then bat at that numbers at 4 and do that. So yeah, I mean, these are decisions that selectors, coaches at that time take, and you can't go against the team policies. So I just adhere to that. But whenever there was an opportunity, I've always went and opened the batting, and especially in T20 cricket, my numbers were much better when I opened the batting, and I was quite equipped to that because I had the experience and all that. So if I was given that opportunity after 2011, at least for that 6 years to open the batting, things would have been much different.
Part of Sri Lanka's failure following the conclusion of your retirement, you and Kumar Sangakkara, was correlated to the form of Chandimal, Thirimana and Angelo Matthews. What they could have done differently, Mahela?
I mean, they had enough exposure because I think Angie was playing with us since 2009. Chandi was on tour 2010. to West Indies for that World Cup. So there was good, 6-7 years of international cricket in different formats that the guys have played. So, but at the same time, I think once we left, the way the team was handled, not by the players but with the selections and processes and all that, I think it was a combination of all that contributed to guys not knowing what their roles were in that team and what they needed to do. So I think for that year and a half, 2 years, I think that whole processes of execution wasn't great, and I think that culminated with the guys not being in form as well, because they were batting in different positions and they were trying different things, all that. So there was no forward thinking and having a plan to say this is what's the best option. And I think that is where they made those mistakes, and that put a lot of pressure on the senior group, and they were not scoring runs, and then later on they were dropped, and roles were changed. The captaincy was an issue. There was a lot of debate on who should be leading, rather than saying no, this is the path that we needed to take, because we had already created that path, and all that had implications, and still we are not been able to take control of that situation. Even up to now, I mean, having Dimut coming and taking over that role has actually stabilized things a little bit. But at the same time, I'm looking from outside, I still feel that that senior group is still a bit disjointed, and we don't still have that core where they take control of those situations.
What would you have done if you were in a kind of a situation as similar to what these guys are in at this point of time?
No, I think it's about everyone sitting down and having an honest discussion and say, what are we doing? It's important that we are representing the country. It's a rich tradition. It's not about winning and losing, it's about competing and competing at that level with consistency. I think what has transpired over the years with the way we've gone about the game is that everyone has become they are questioning their belief, their ability, and actually playing for survival. When you're playing for survival, then the winning mentality goes out of the window. The team mentality, team goes out of the window, because it then becomes individual performances. So I think that you put the players in that situation with the environment around it as well, the selection processes, the way people were chopped and changed. I think there were some numbers in that 2-year period where we have played 50 odd players in formats, different formats. I mean, when you're looking at 50 players being played in a 2-year period, I mean, I'm wondering, did we have enough players in even our first class structure to bring into that level? So that creates instability within the group. People starts questioning, like you asked me that 2003 World Cup question, where are you going into, or when I made the debut, are you going into the game thinking, am I going to be there for that next game? So that thing comes naturally, because you are put into that situation, whether you like it or not. So I think we are still going through that phases. I think things have settled down a little bit with different formats, but I think things could have been handled much better.
Giving into politics, not standing up for your players, and then letting other people making decisions, these are the things that you prevented from happening while you were the captain of Sri Lanka. How did you do this? What type of things that you kind of put in place?
No, I think you just need to control that environment. I've always said that even with my coaching, I control what I can control, and I can control as a leader or a senior player in the group, I can control that situation. I mean, having honest conversations with the selectors and say, this is what's right and what's wrong. And I expected the generation to follow that as well, because especially in our part of the world, it's important. I've documented this many times. I've said it out in the open, like when I was captaining, there were a lot of influences, there's a lot of ways where cricketers were bought into the squads and all that. We prevented that because we knew that it was not the right thing to do. And when you do that, your teammates, your players have belief that the leadership has belief in them, and they are doing the right thing, and then they have that confidence of going out and performing, because they know that our backs have been looked at, we are being protected in the right way. You don't protect the wrong people, you protect the right guys who are the rightly skillful players who should be in the team only for their skills but nothing else. And that's what I said, like when you put the right minds, you get the right guys with the selectors, everyone, the environment has to be right, and make the right decisions for the right reasons, then you have nothing to worry about, and that environment has to be created.
Even one of the interviews or an article that I read that was written by Kumar Sangakkara, I believe that he had said that you do not take pressure into your head, you just leave everything outside and then walk into the field. If there's any learning that needs to be provided to the current Sri Lanka crop of players, what would you actually tell? You must have spoken to them already.
Yeah, I have spoken to them. I've told them to keep things simple. I mean, they're there because they're talented, they're good enough. You don't doubt your ability. I think, like I've said many a times, it's just the environment which is being created around. When you're insecure, it's very tough. When you're insecure about what's happening, what's going on, because you've seen it, like you've seen changes. I mean, I'm not saying I'm pointing fingers at anybody. It has happened over a 4-year period, and the amount of changes has happened, amount of captains being appointed, so then not knowing what is the leadership, what is the core group, what is going on. We had many coaches coming in and going, so the direction hasn't been there. So all that actually influence how the performances are going to be out there as well. A lot of the guys had few opportunities and they've been left out, and new guys come in. So it's two things. It's just that the guy who's performing is also in the team not sure whether his place is secure, and the new guy is being bought in. He's also under pressure saying, I probably have few opportunities. If I don't perform, I'm out of the team. So that is when that selfish mentality comes in. I have to play for myself rather than for the team, because I need to secure my position. And when that happens, your team performances, you playing as a team, goes out of the window. Because what you have to remember, like I've always protected a lot of the guys, especially the middle order guys, because the top order usually gets more balls to face. You get your 60s, 70s, 100s, but actual dirty work is done by your lower middle order, right? The guys who get that 20, 30 runs in few balls, sometimes the guys who stop those boundaries, field superbly. You need to identify the guys who do the dirty work for the team. They are the most valuable for the team. They are the ones who make those 5%ers, the changers. Yes, you have your skillful guys, the core who's scoring runs and profile guys, but without the guys who do the dirty work, you cannot win matches. The guys who bowl 3-4 overs, pick up a wicket here, there, takes a brilliant catch, who brings the energy to the team, all those have to be protected, because they are not going to be scoring hundreds and 50s because they don't get the opportunity, but they are a vital cog in that chain. So it's important to understand all that, and everyone else also have to understand that mentality, and that is how you build unique teams. That is how you build consistency over a period of time. So that has to be brought back in.
Talking about Angelo Matthews, Wannindu Hasaranga and Kusal Janit Pereira, they could easily fit into an IPL team.
Yes, skill-wise, but I think the burning question is the consistency over a period of time. I mean, Angie was part of IPL franchise cricket for quite some time, but he wasn't able to maintain those consistent performances. Coupled with his injuries over the years, that's a concern for a lot of the franchises as well. So that's one thing. Kusal, I feel that he hadn't had an opportunity in IPL cricket, but at the same time, if you take Kusal's, KJP's career as well, the last 4 years when he had some good spikes where he was performing and then he was injured for long periods of time as well. He had a lot of hamstring injuries, back problems and all that. So these are things that sometimes the franchises think about, whether they'll be available full time with the injuries and all that. I mean, Wannindu just came into the international cricket 12 months ago, and I'm pretty sure that most of the franchises are looking at him, and now consistently he's stringing performances together. So I'm pretty sure that going forward, he'll be an option for franchise cricket, not just for IPL but for other franchise cricket as well.
Talking based on Mumbai Indians perspective, did you ever think of recruiting these 3 players to your franchise?
No, we've had conversations. I mean, we had Akila for one season. Obviously Lasit's been there. We had Asela Gunaratna for a year. So we will always look at that options of, if there is a talented player. In Wannindu's case, obviously we have a couple of good young Indian leg spinners in our ranks. So then, it's all about playing combinations, overseas combinations, where we feel weaker, then we go and get the overseas options in those areas so we can fill it up. But going into a big auction, anything can happen. But not just us, I'm pretty confident that the other franchises are talking about our young cricketers. Isuru got an opportunity last year with Bangalore, so it's not that they're not talking or they're not looking. They know that the skill sets are there, but it's about consistent performances, whether the mindset is right to come and perform at that level.
Talking about current crop of players, in 2011 rather, when you took over the captaincy, you insisted, I guess, Sri Lanka cricket, that the captaincy your successor should be Angelo Matthews. That's the only condition that you have put in place to take over the captaincy. Among the current crop of players, Dimuth Karnaratne is took over the reins as the captain since 2019 World Cup. Who do you think has the capability of leading Sri Lanka in the future?
I mean, it's a good question, but unfortunately, it's very tough for me to answer that sitting outside. I would give you a very good answer if I was working with the national team closely and interacting with the players consistently, being in that dressing room to understand their mindset of leadership, of tactics, of being able to handle those situations. Without me being in that spot, very honestly, I cannot give a partial answer, because it's just that it's not fair. It's not fair, because if I say something, that is going to be headlines, and then without me knowing the players, the next generation players, leadership qualities in that dressing room, it's very tough for me to give an honest answer. But Angelo, obviously, we played together, we knew his capabilities, his mindset, and that's why I made that call. I took over for 1 year just to settle things down and hand it over, because we knew we were going to play for that next World Cup. So we were around him to make sure that he's been helped. But without knowing the younger generation, the next guys in line, very tough for me to make that.
Talking about your second innings, you were appointed as a coach of Mumbai Indians, and from a Sri Lankan fan's perspective, I could say that Mumbai Indians is the second most supported team in Sri Lanka, because of Mahela Jayawardene, and of course Lasith Malinga was part of it for a long period of time, I would say. Can you explain me the sequence of events that occurred leading up to you being appointed as a coach of Mumbai Indians?
To be honest, I had no ambitions of being a coach. At that time I was still playing franchise cricket. After retiring, I gave myself 2 years to play franchise cricket. So I was doing that, playing everywhere, because even up to that point I hadn't played county cricket in England. So that was the time I went and played for Sussex and Somerset. I've really enjoyed my time. And I remember when I got the call, I was in Bangladesh playing the Premier League. And at that moment, I think I had done a couple of consultancy work with the England team, and few others. So that was my experience as a coach, but as a consultant, parting my experience. And they called and said that they're interested to have a conversation of taking over Mumbai's, and my first thing was I have no experience coaching. But they said, no, we just want to have a chat and see whether you like, what's on offer, in the sense that, the control that. But one thing I told them, obviously, and to date they've respected that, I have said, I take responsibility for the decisions I take, simple as that. So I did not want any interference from anyone. If I am the head coach, and I take full responsibility for team selections and execution, and that is in my control. And I said, if I'm not making the right decisions, feel free to let me go. But if I get anyone interfering with my processes, then I will leave as well. So that's the agreement that we had, a verbal agreement, and up to date, both parties have respected that, and that's the uniqueness about that franchise. And they are very passionate, they are involved, but ultimately, there's a process in place. So there's transparency, there's structures. The players understand how everything's been done. So first 2 years for me was a learning experience, because I hadn't been a head coach making decisions, but I've enjoyed the challenge, and it was a challenge. And I've learned a lot about corporate governance, in the sense they run that franchise like a company kind of thing. A lot of structures in place, so I've learned quite a bit on that side, how to run a franchise, how to run that, and then how to incorporate the game into that as well, so that the mechanism works together. So yeah, it's been a amazing learning process for me.
You answered a lot of questions based on the particular answer that you gave. Talking about the ownership standpoint, Mrs. Ambani and Akash Ambani has been seen on the TV whenever Mumbai Indians is playing, and even the documentary, the presence of them were felt. What is their contribution? What do they basically involve in terms?
No, I think as franchise owners, it's important that they have that ownership, they have that commitment to the team, and they're very passionate about the team and the whole franchise. So, and they bring nothing but positive influence into the group, and it's a very transparent process, and obviously we make cricketing decisions, and we then discuss those cricketing decisions with them, and they are aware of it, but at no given time that there is an influence on that because they've led those cricketing decisions made by us. But there's always a conversation, there's always a healthy conversations on why these decisions are being made. So especially the most important thing is that when you're building a squad over a period of time, you need the franchise and the owners to buy into that whole thing, and they follow cricket. I mean, especially I've worked with Akash for the last 4 years. His knowledge on the game is second to none. I mean, he follows wherever there's cricket, he follows the players, he follows their performances. He asks the right questions. Domestic cricket in India, he follows, he knows who are the talented young guys and how we need to go and get them, because we've had to buy these players in an auction, and the processes are very tough. Everyone's bidding for these players, and how do we build a squad, how do we build a team, how do we build a core group of players, how do we bring values into that core group and create a culture that with a winning mentality. So all that is part of them being involved and creating this whole process. So it's important that they have that understanding and bring their values. I mean, they are an amazing company. They have achieved so much and being who they are, but they're very humble people as well. So they wanted that to, you know, be processed in Mumbai Indians team culture, as being the team is one family, and family is very important for them. So that whole emphasis is brought out in that Mumbai Indian setup as well. So I think it's important that you have an identity. It's very difficult when you're doing something without an identity. I think that's something that they bring into the entire setup.
Talking about Rohit Sharma, 2016, I think Rohit Sharma was handed over the captaincy of Mumbai Indians, and then they went on to win the championship. And thereafter, a couple of years later, also under your leadership, basically they went on to win the championship as well. What is so unique about his captaincy, Mahela?
I think Rohit is a very instinctive captain. I think he makes a lot of decisions out there in the middle with his experience. At the same time, he likes the analytical part of the game, information, data, but we all understand that is only a part of it. Still, you have to make impulsive decisions out there in the middle, you know, to go with. I mean, it's a classic case of him throwing the ball to Lasith Malinga in that last over after him being gone for 30 plus runs in 3 overs, but he just felt that this is the guy who can handle the pressure. He's done it before, even though it's his, you know, last few years. He said, you know, experience matters. So those kind of decisions has to be made out there in the middle. So that's the uniqueness Rohit brings to the team, that he makes those instinctive calls out there in the middle.
Talking about Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli, it's a kind of a similar situation between you and Kumar Sangakkara. But it was a smooth transition in terms of captaincy from you to Sangakkara in 2009. Do you ever think that Rohit Sharma will be able to captain India, maybe following the conclusion of 2023 World Cup?
Yeah, it all depends on what Virat wants to do as well. I think, I mean, the captaining a national team, there's a lifespan for that, and that much you can handle, especially in the subcontinent. So I think for Virat, he want to finish that period after taking over from MS and then conclude. And I'm sure if Rohit is fit and he's performing at that time, what you have to remember is that Rohit is few years older than Virat. So by after the World Cup, whether Rohit has ambitions to go for another 4-year cycle and the Indian whatever. So that's something that obviously needs to be answered at that time. But I think both of them work really well together. They've got good leadership qualities, and they put it together. And the Indian team has been doing very consistently in all formats over the last 4 years. We've got a good young group of talent coming through. They're harnessing that very well. So yeah, it's good.